Hello everyone and welcome to this video channel Science Class 8. Today we are going to learn chapter number 17, Stars and the Solar System. And the beginning portion of this chapter number 17 we have studied in the previous video class. And in today's video class, let's continue this same topic from textbook page number 249. Let's see. Here what it says, let's see. A constellation doesn't have only 5 to 10 stars, and it has a large number of stars in figure number 17.16 you have seen here. And we can see only the bright stars in a constellation with our naked eye, and all the stars which make up a constellation are not at the same distance, and they are just in the same line of sight in the sky. So here we can see a constellation, a definite shape. So in the next page, we have seen the solar system. Here the sun is at the central or middle, and say Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune all are revolving around the sun. So we have seen this solar system. Now let's continue the solar system. The sun and the celestial bodies which revolve around it form the solar system. It consists of large number of bodies such as planets, comets, asteroids, and meteors. The gravitational attraction between the sun and these objects keep them revolving around it. So, sun and the celestial bodies which revolve around it form the solar system. And solar system consists of large number of bodies such as say planets, comets, asteroids and meteors. And the gravitational attraction between the sun and these objects keep them revolving around it. So the Earth, as you know, also revolves around the sun. It is a member of the solar system. So our planet Earth, also known as the blue planet, it is also a member of the solar system, and it is a planet, and there are 7 other planets that revolve around the sun. The 8 planets in their order of descent from the sun are: the first one is Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. So our planet Earth is in the third place. So figure number 17.17 shows a schematic view of the solar system. As you have seen here, the schematic view of the solar system. Sun is at the middle, then Mercury, Venus, Earth, next is Mars and Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. All are shown here. Because of the gravitational force of the sun, all these planets revolve around the sun. Here I have read that there are 9 planets in the solar system. Now let's study about this thing. We have heard there are 9 planets in the solar system, but here only 8 planets. Pluto was considered to be one of the planet, but now it is not considered as a planet. That's why there are 8 planets in the solar system. Here, did you know, till 2006 there were 9 planets in the solar system. Here, Pluto was the farthest planet from the sun. So in 2006, the International Astronomical Union, IAU, International Astronomical Union, adopted a new definition of a planet. That is, Pluto does not fit this definition. So, it is no longer a planet of the solar system. So, before 2006, Pluto was considered to be one of the planets, but after 2006, International Astronomical Union IAU adopted a new definition of a planet. So Pluto does not fit this definition. That is why Pluto is not considered to be a planet. So let us know about some members of the solar family. Let's see. The Sun. The Sun is the nearest star from Earth. It is continuously emitting huge amounts of heat and light. And the Sun is the source of almost all energy on the Earth. In fact, the Sun is the main source of heat and light for all the planets. So, for all the planets, the Sun is the main source of heat and light. And the planets, let's see, the planets look like stars, but they do not have light of their own. They merely reflect the sunlight that falls on them. So can you distinguish between planets and stars? Let's study. The simplest method of identifying planets from stars is that stars twinkle, whereas planets do not twinkle. Also, the planets keep changing their positions with respect to the stars. A planet has a definite path in which it revolves around the Sun. This path is called an orbit. The time taken by a planet to complete one revolution is called its period of revolution. So, period of revolution is nothing, it is the time taken by a planet to complete one revolution. So, the period of revolution increases as the distance of the planet increases from the Sun. So, the period of the revolution increases as the distance of the planet increases from the Sun. So, here, I wonder why the planets do not collide while revolving around the Sun. Activity 17.9, let's see. Go out into the playground with 4 or 5 of your friends. Draw 4 circles of radii, 1 meter, 1.8 meter, 2.5 meter, and 3.8 meter, all having a common center. That is figure number 17.1i. Ask one of your friends to stand in the center and represent the Sun. Your other 4 friends may represent Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Now, ask your friends to move around the Sun in anti-clockwise direction in their own orbits. Figure number 17.1. Do they collide with one another? They don't collide one another. Likewise, planets revolve around the Sun. Here is the answer. So, figure number 17.1, planets move in their own orbits. So, this boy moved in its path, and this also, they have their own orbit. That means they have their own path. That is called the planets do not collide each other. Besides revolving around the Sun, a planet also rotates on its own axis like a top. So figure number 17.19, the time taken by a planet to complete one rotation is called its period of rotation. Here let's see what is a period of rotation. It is the time taken by a planet to complete one rotation. That is called period of rotation. Here a planet rotates on its own axis like a top. So here it shows some planets are known to have moons, satellites, and revolving around them. Any celestial body revolving around another celestial body is called its satellite. The Earth can be said to be a satellite of the Sun, though generally we call it a planet of the Sun. Planet of the Sun. So here let's see. Some planets are known to have moons or satellites revolving around them. Say for example, the moon is known as the natural satellite of the Earth because the moon revolves around the around the Earth. Any celestial body revolving around another celestial body is called its satellite. So any celestial body revolving around another one, then it is called satellite. So the Earth can be said to be a satellite of the Sun, though generally we call it a planet of the Sun. So we use the term satellite for the bodies revolving around planets. So moon is a satellite of the Earth. Here also it is mentioned. And there are many man-made satellites revolving around this Earth. So these are called artificial satellites. So here the Earth revolves around the Sun, and thus it makes Earth a satellite of the Sun. Actually, the Earth revolves around the Sun, and thus it makes Earth a satellite of the Sun. Actually, Earth itself also may call satellite of the Sun because the Earth revolves around the Sun. So, but it has given the name that is called the planet of the Sun. So there are many man-made artificial satellites revolving around the Earth. So these are called artificial satellites. So astronomy in ancient India, let's see. The practice of astronomy in ancient India is mentioned in Big Rig Veda, which was composed about 4,000 years ago. Many Indian scholars have contributed to astronomy. One of the most well-known astronomers is Aryabhata. So Aryabhata was one of the well-known astronomers in the ancient India. The work of Aryabhata on astronomy can be found in his writing Aryabhatiya. He wrote it in 199 CE at the age of 23 years. The diameter of the Earth, as stated by Aryabhata, is close to its presently known value. This regarding the popular view that Earth is achala, that means immovable. Aryabhata stated that Earth is sphere and rotates on its own axis. So his estimate about the sidereal period of Earth was 23 hours, 56 minutes and 4.1 seconds, which is very close to the presently known value. So he also correctly stated that the moon and the planets shine due to reflected sunlight. He also gave a scientific explanation for solar and lunar eclipse. When the shadow of the Earth falls on the moon, it causes lunar eclipse. Shadow of the Earth falls on the moon, then it causes lunar eclipse. And when the shadow of the moon falls on the Earth, it causes solar eclipse. Aryabhata also found the distance between the Earth and the moon, which is very close to the known value today. So here is the Aryabhata CE 476 to 550. So he is one of the well-known Indian scholars who contributed to astronomy. So about the Mercury, it is also known as Buddha in India. Let's see. The planet Mercury is nearest to the Sun, and it is the smallest planet of our solar system. Mercury is the nearest and smallest planet of our solar system because Mercury is very close to the Sun. Mercury is very close to the Sun, and it is very difficult to observe it. And as most of the time it is hidden in the glare of the Sun. However, it can be observed just before sunrise or just after sunset, near the horizon, so it is visible only at places where trees or buildings do not obstruct the view of the horizon. Mercury has no satellite of its own. So here Mercury, the planet Mercury is nearest to the Sun, and it is one of the smallest planets of our solar system. And because of very close to the Sun, it is very difficult to observe it. So Mercury has no satellite of its own. Venus, let's see, it is also known as Shukra. Venus is Earth's nearest planetary neighbor. It is the brightest planet in the night sky. And sometimes Venus appears in the eastern sky before sunrise. Sometimes it appears in the western sky just after sunset. Therefore, it is often called a morning or an evening star. And although it is not a star, try to locate Venus in the night sky. So, Venus is nearest planetary neighbor to the Earth, and sometimes it appears in the eastern sky before sunrise, and sometimes it appears in the western sky just after sunset. So Venus has no moon or satellite of its own. Rotation of Venus on its axis is somewhat unusual, and it rotates from east to west while the Earth rotates from west to east. So activity 17.10, let's see. Find out from some newspaper or from an almanac the time when Venus is visible in the sky. You can easily recognize Venus by its brightness. And remember that Venus cannot be seen very high in the sky. You must try to observe Venus either 1 to 3 hours before sunrise or 1 to 3 hours after sunset. So, does it mean that on Venus the sun would rise in the west and set in the east? Does it mean that on Venus the sun would rise in the west and set in the east? Here, let's see. If you get a chance, try to observe Venus through a telescope. Then you will observe that Venus shows phases just like the moon. So, figure number 17.20, we can see phases of the Venus. So, phases of the Venus, as we have observed in the moon, crescent shape like that. In the Venus also, phases of we can see. Here the Earth, that is indigenous name, that is called what? Prithvi. Let's see. The Earth is the only planet in the solar system on which life is known to exist. Life is known to exist in the Earth. This is the only planet, and some special environmental conditions are responsible for the existence and the continuation of life on the Earth. These include just the right distance from the Sun, so that it has the right temperature range, the presence of water and suitable atmosphere, and a blanket of ozone. So these are the conditions for existence of life. Say right temperature and presence of water and suitable atmosphere. That means the blanket of air as well as blanket of ozone. These are available in the Earth. So we must take special care to protect our environment so that life on Earth is not disturbed. So this is the point to be noted there. We must take special care to protect our environment so that life on Earth is not disturbed. So from space, The Earth appears blue-green due to the reflection of light from water and landmass on its surface. So the axis of rotation of the Earth is not perpendicular to the plane of its orbit. The tilt is responsible for the change of seasons on the Earth. The Earth has only one moon. The Earth has only one moon. So if I am 13 years old, then how many times have I gone around the sun? So here let's see. Mars, that is also known as the Mangal. The next planet, the first outside the orbit of the Earth, is Mars, and it appears slightly reddish, and therefore it is also called the red planet. So it is also known as the red planet. So Mars has two small natural satellites. Mars has two small natural satellites. Here let's see Mangalyaan. Indian Space Research Organization, in short we know as ISRO, ISRO, launched India's first Mars orbiter mission, that is Mangalyaan, on November 5, 2013. It was successfully placed into an orbit of Mars on September 24, 2014. With this, India became the first country in the world to do so in its first attempt. So Mangalyaan is one of the mission to be taken by the Indian Space Research Organization. On November 5, 2013, it was successfully placed into an orbit of Mars, and on September 24, 2014, with this, India became the first country in the world to do so in the first attempt. Jupiter, also known as Brihaspati in India. Let's see. Jupiter is the largest planet of the solar system. It is so large that about 1,300 Earths can be placed inside this giant planet. So Jupiter is also known as the giant planet. And however, the mass of Jupiter is about 318 times that of our Earth. It rotates very rapidly on its axis. So Jupiter has a large number of satellites. It also has faint rings around it. You can easily recognize Jupiter as it appears quite bright in the sky. If you observe it with the help of a telescope, you can also see four of its large moons, figure number 17.22. Here, figure number 17.22, Jupiter and its four large satellites. Jupiter is here and its large satellite here, here, and here. Jupiter has its four satellites. You are familiar with the equator of the Earth. You know equator of the Earth. Equator is one of the imaginary line which divides the Earth into two equal hemispheres, that is northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. So the plane of the equator is called the equatorial plane, that is figure number 17.21. Let's see. The plane in which the Earth revolves around the sun is called the orbital plane of the Earth, figure number 17.21. These two planes are inclined to each other at an angle of 23.5 degrees. This means that the axis of the Earth is inclined to its orbital plane at an angle of 66.5 degrees. So here is the figure, north and south, and this is the equator. Earth's orbital plane is this, and equatorial plane is shown here, and 23.5 degree and 23.5 degree planes are inclined to each other. So Earth rotates on a tilted axis. Next, let's continue in the next page. I have an idea. If you take a large ball which can accommodate about 1300 peas, then the ball will represent Jupiter and 1 pea will represent the Earth. Yes, this is quite peculiar example. 1300 peas we can put in a large ball, and then the ball will represent the Jupiter. The large ball will represent the Jupiter and 1 pea will represent the Earth. So Jupiter is one of the giant planets. Saturn, that is also known as Sunny. Beyond Jupiter is Saturn, which appears yellowish in color. And what makes it unique in the solar system is its beautiful rings. These rings are not visible with the naked eye. You can observe them with a small telescope. Saturn also has a large number of satellites. So the planet Saturn has large number of satellites, natural satellites. So one interesting thing about Saturn is that it is the less dense among all the planets, and its density is less than that of water. The density of Saturn is less than that of water. So Uranus and Neptune, let's see. These are the outermost planets of the solar system. They can be seen only with the help of large telescopes. So like Venus, Uranus also rotates from east to west. The most remarkable feature of Uranus is that it has highly tilted rotational axis. So figure number 17.24, Uranus in its orbital path. You can see here Uranus in its orbital path, and this is Saturn is less dense than water. Say because it example is shown here. Say when the planet Saturn is put in the water, then it will float. So this is example. Saturn is less dense than water. So here, Buzo has a naughty idea. If we imagine Saturn in a large pool of water, then it will float. This means Saturn has less dense than water. That is why if we put a large pool of water, then we put the Saturn, then it will float. Now, next page, let's see. Next page, page number 256. Figure number 17.24. As a result, in its orbital motion, it appears to roll on its side. The first four planets, that is, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, are much nearer the Sun than the other four planets. So they are called the inner planets. They are called the inner planets, and the inner planets have very few moons. So the inner planets have very few moons, and the planets outside the orbit of Mars, namely say Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, are much farther off than the inner planets. So they are called the outer planets. They have a ring system around them, and the outer planets have large number of moons. So the first four planets in the solar system, they are Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. These first four planets are much near the Sun than the other four planets. So they are called the inner planets, and the inner planets have very few moons, and the planets outside the orbits of Mars, namely Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, they are much farther up than the inner planets, so they are called outer planets. And they have a ring system around them, and outer planets have large number of moons. And some other members of the solar system, let's see. There are some other bodies which revolve around the sun. They are also members of the solar system. So let us learn about some of them. So, asteroids. What are asteroids? Let's see. There is a large gap in between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, figure number 17.25. This gap is occupied by a large number of small objects that revolve around the sun. These are called asteroids. Asteroids can only be seen through large telescopes. Asteroids can only be seen through large telescopes. Here, let's see comets. What are comets? Comets are also members of our solar system. They revolve around the sun in highly elliptical orbits. However, their period of revolution around the sun is usually very low. A comet appears generally as a bright head with a long tail. The length of the tail grows in size as it approaches the sun. The tail of a comet is always directed away from the sun. Figure number 17.26. Here is the sun. Venus is here, Mercury is here, then Earth, Mars. Here are the asteroids, and Jupiter is here. So the asteroid belt is shown here. And in next page, figure number 17.26, different positions of a comet. Different positions of a comet are shown here. So many comets are known to appear periodically. One such comet is Halley's Comet. Halley's Comet, which appears after nearly every 76 years. After every 76 years, this Halley's Comet we can appear, and it was last seen in 1986. In 1986, it was last seen. Can you tell when Halley's Comet will be visible again? Then we can start counting from 1986. Then in the 76th year, we can see Halley's Comet. Superstitions about the comets. Let's see. Some people think that comets are messengers of disasters, such as wars, epidemics, and floods. But these are all myths and superstitions. Appearance of a comet is a natural phenomenon. We have no reason to be afraid of it. So some superstitions about the comets are there. Some people think that comets are messengers of disasters, say for example war, epidemic, and floods. But these are all myths and superstitions. Appearance of comet is a natural phenomenon, and we have no reason to be afraid of it. Meteors and meteorites. Let's see. At night, when the sky is clear and the moon is not there, we may sometimes see bright streaks of light in the sky. These are commonly known as shooting stars. Although they are not stars, they are called meteors. A meteor is usually a small object that occasionally enters the Earth's atmosphere. At that time, it has a very high speed. The friction due to the atmosphere heats it up. It glows and evaporates quickly. That is why the bright streak lasts for a very short time. So, figure number 17.27, streak of a meteor, you can see here, streak of meteor. And some meteors are large and so they can reach the Earth. Before they evaporate completely, the body that reaches the Earth is called a meteorite. Meteorites help scientists in investigating the nature of the material from which the solar system was formed. So meteorites help scientists in investigating the nature of the material from which the solar system was formed. So meteor showers, let's see, meteor showers. When the Earth crosses the tail of a comet, swarms of meteors are seen. These are known as meteor showers. Some meteor showers occur at regular intervals each year. You can find the time of their appearance from a scientific magazine or from the internet. So, we can find the time of their appearance from a scientific magazine or from the internet. Here, artificial satellites. Let's see what are artificial satellites. You must have heard that there are a number of artificial satellites which are orbiting the Earth. You might wonder how artificial satellites are different from natural satellites. Artificial satellites are man-made and they are launched from the Earth. They revolve around the Earth much closer than Earth's natural satellite, that is the Moon. So, artificial satellites are man-made satellites and they are different from natural satellites. So, artificial satellites are launched from the Earth and they revolve around the Earth much closer than Earth's natural satellite, that is the Moon. So, next page, let's see. India has built and launched several artificial satellites. So, Aryabhatta was the first Indian satellite. Some other Indian satellites are INSAT, IRS, Kalpana-1, EduSat, etc. Figure number 17.28, it is shown. So these are the artificial satellites which are launched from the Earth in order to do specific functions. So for the Indian nation, these are the satellites. The name is INSAT, IRS, Kalpana-1, EduSat, like this. So artificial satellites have many practical applications and they are used for forecasting weather and transmitting television and radio signals, and they are also used for telecommunication and remote sensing. And I want to tell you that by remote sensing we mean collecting information from a distance. Here the artificial satellites are shown here. Some Indian satellites launched by the Indian Space Research Organization, in short we know as ISRO, are shown here. They revolve around the Earth and they are used for different purposes, like for weather forecasting, for transmitting television and radio signals, and for telecommunication, and for identifying the fishing zones in the oceans, like that. They had been used. So for today it comes to the end of this video class. In the next video class, let's study a new chapter. For today, let's stop here. Okay, bye.